So, as we all know, Donald Trump was not very happy at all with SNL. In fact, he was very peeved by SNL generally. He thought Saturday Night Live was very insulting towards him, thought it was very mean towards him. It was very, very mean. And as much as I want to stop talking about Donald Trump, this article is just too hilarious and a little sad to not talk about. How Trump wanted to use the Department of Justice, his Justice Department, to stop SNL from teasing him and mocking him on television. He wanted to use the Justice Department to silence his critics. So let's get into this. SNL amounted to nothing less than unfair news coverage and Dem commercials, Trump tweeted in 2018, pondering whether his thought should be tested in courts can't be legal. It was the middle of Donald Trump's presidency, and he was, yet again, mad at Saturday Night Live, and he wanted the federal government to help him settle the score. In March of 2019, the then President of the United States had just watched an episode of the long-running, liberal-leaning NBC sketch comedy series. It wasn't even a new episode, it was a rerun, and grew immediately incensed that the show was gently mocking him. It's truly incredible that shows like Saturday Night Live, not funny / no talent, can spend all their time knocking the same person, me, over and over without so much of a mention of the other side, Trump tweeted, long before he was banned from Twitter for inspiring a violent mob. Like an advertisement without consequences, same with late night shows. Should Federal Election Commission and or FCC look into this? So what he's doing here basically amounts to a slap suit. I mean, it isn't legally a slap suit, but it has the same effect. Slap suits are frivolous lawsuits people throw at critics or people who are saying things they don't like in order to basically scare them from saying things. This is him just publicly saying, like, hey, maybe the FCC will look onto my television critics and do something about them. But the thing is, Saturday Night Live did lambast Trump a lot, that's true. But Saturday Night Live is famous for lambasting politicians. It's nothing new. The sketch comedy show has lambasted the first Bush, it lambasted Ronald Reagan, lambasted Bill Clinton, it lambasted a lot of people. So for Donald Trump to take excessive offense to this is just, of course, his ego showing clear and his lack of dedication to freedom of expression. A lot of the people who were very free speech warriors on the internet and cared deeply about freedom of expression shouldn't really be that surprised, though, because Donald Trump has always shown signs of being anti-free speech. The most clear one being when he was publicly calling for people who burn the American flag to be given prison time. Quite frankly, literally arresting people for using their right to freedom of expression. Quite literally calling for the arresting of people who protest. This really would be no different whatsoever than the recent laws passed in Hong Kong that could show jail time for people who decided to boo the Chinese national anthem. It's as ridiculous and as stupid as that. It was on its face a ridiculous question and threat, as SNL is obviously satire. By the way, another Republican congressman has proposed legislation to ban flag burning, which we're going to cover later. And therefore, a form of protected speech in America that pissed off commanders-in-chief have no authority to directly subvert. However, then President Trump went farther than simply tweeting his displeasure with the late-night comedians and SNL writers' room. The internal discussions that followed between the former leader of the free world and some of his political legal advisors once again underscored just how much Trump wanted to use the full weight and power of the U.S. government to punish his personal enemies. According to two people familiar with the matter, Trump had asked advisors and lawyers in the early 2019 about the Federal Communications Commission, the court system, and most confusingly to some Trump lieutenants, the Department of Justice could do to probe or mitigate SNL, Jimmy Kimmel, and other late-night comedy mischief makers. To those who heard it, Trump's inquiry and what federal regulations could be used to bust the likes of Kimmel and SNL was more of a nuisance than a constitutional crisis. It was more annoying than alarming, to be honest with you, one of the sources recalled. However, the conversations further showed, in the pettiest of ways, how the 45th U.S. president was keen on turning the country's top law enforcers into something more akin to his own personally retained law firm. This is no different than using slap suits to intimidate people. No difference whatsoever. His purpose of using the Department of Justice to go after SNL, go after Jimmy Kimmel with the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, was simply to intimidate them from covering him negatively, because he is somebody who's very centered on his brand. He is somebody who's made an entire career off of having a big brand, and he's somebody with a tremendous ego, and he's extremely thin-skinned. So it's not that difficult to see how a show that literally told their staff to go easy on him when he was on the show, and that's because the owner of SNL at the time, who I think still might own SNL, compared Trump's racism to nothing more than like the racism of a New York taxi cab driver. Told his staff to go easy on him. He got easy treatment when he was actually on SNL. It was later, when he was not on SNL and his presidency took off, that they got more harsh. And that, of course, then, when they actually got harsh and started actually, going after the president's policies or positions or actions in office, that's when he wanted to intimidate them. And Trump has never been one to hide away from his stance on, using the law against those who criticize him. He is somebody who's talked about opening up the libel laws for the longest time, which is actually libel laws, and how difficult it is to land a libel suit in this country is one of the things I'm very proud of as an American, is our freedom of expression in the United States. And the fact that we do have more freedom of expression in the United States than we do in a lot of other countries. But I think that's one of the things that Donald Trump hates the most about this country, is the fact that, number one, people can criticize him, and he can't just, throw them in prison. Number two, that you're allowed to burn the American flag because it's constitutionally allowed, because that's freedom of expression. And number three, the libel suits are not easy to just throw at anybody that says something mean about you. So again, if you're a constitutionalist, if you're somebody who genuinely cares about freedom of expression, because I know a lot of people on the internet who makes that one of their main issues. Trump was never your guy, but this is not something just restrained to Trump. We're going to talk about later in the show how another Republican politician in this legislative session has proposed a federal ban on flag burning. One that comes with prison time for expressing yourself, that is completely covered by the First Amendment. We'll talk about that later, but I thought this needed some mention, that Donald Trump tried to use the Department of Justice to go after his critics. I thought this did deserve some mention. So as we all know, the left is attacking free speech. They hate America, they hate our values, and they're attacking free speech. You'll see it on college campuses, you see the safe spaces, you see the snowflakes, and obviously, we are now seeing the new turn of these snowflakes who are angry about a piece of cloth being set on fire. It's disgusting, it's angry. These morons should know that we have the First Amendment in the United States. Wait, give me a second here. Oh, sorry, my assistant gave me the wrong notes. Oh, it was actually a Republican. A Republican senator introduced a constitutional amendment to ban flag burning. An exception to free speech, where this piece of cloth is so special, so unique, so amazing, that you should not burn this flag. You can burn, like, the Chinese flag, or the rainbow gay flag, or the trans flag, or the British flag, or all the other flags, but you can't burn this flag because this flag's special. It's quite unique to me that we are so proud of our freedoms, so proud of them, so proud of the fact that we would value the United States. The same thing that would motivate someone to get angry about someone burning a flag, which is, well, America's so cool because we have all these freedoms. They want to make America worse in order to not burn that flag. As in, we should ban flag burning so we destroy the very liberties that makes me value that flag in the first place. God, I'm so sick of the left proposing constitutional amendments to ban certain parts of free speech. Wait, there's not a single Democrat that did that last election, or the election before, or the election before, or the election before, or last session, or the midterms, or anywhere. It's the Republicans who have been pushing it. They pushed it last time with the constitutional amendment to ban gay marriage. Flag burning. They also did that, but that's a totally different issue. And this is the second time. And hell, they had a president in office proposing prison time for people burning flags. Let's go on to it. By the way, this is the type of stuff that I saw conservatives rightfully getting angry about in Hong Kong. As in, man, have you seen these new Hong Kong laws that were passed that makes it that you could get prison time for booing the Chinese national anthem? That is disgusting. That is gross. That is repulsive. I thought that they valued liberty. They are destroying their liberties. A few months later, yeah, if you burn a flag, you should go to prison. Ridiculous. Let's read this. GOP Senator Steve Daines, Montana, on Monday reintroduced a constitution. Oh, I want to ask actually Lecture Fan about this, because Lecture Fan actually lives in Montana. Reintroduced a constitutional amendment to bar the physical desecration of the American flag. The American flag is a symbol of liberty and a beacon of hope. It represents the ideals that our nation was built upon, and for decades, brave men and women have carried its color into battle to defend the United States of America, the Montana senator said in a statement released on Flag Day. The Stars and Stripes are a representation of freedom. We must always protect and respect the American flag. Saying you cannot have one destroy not even a actual thing that defends our freedom, but just a representation of our freedom. Banning the destruction of that is the most anti-freedom thing I could think of. Like, this piece of cloth represents the freedoms you have that millions of Americans have fought and died for on the battlefields. From the American Revolution to the First World War to the Civil War to 1812 to Korea to World War II to all these different conflicts. Desert Storm, you just go through all of them. And that is why, since this represents our freedom in the background right there, that is the one you can't insult that. Please don't. You can't desecrate it. You can't burn it. You can't mark it in mean ways, because that would be very offensive and mean. So to represent our liberty, you can't burn a flag, a piece of cloth. Just ours, though. All the other ones are fair game. You want to burn the gay flag? You want to burn the Maryland flag? You want to burn any other flag? That's fine. Just don't burn that one, because that one represents liberties, but not the liberty to use your free speech protections and burn a flag. Daines has introduced this amendment 2 times before. The measure was co-sponsored by Republican Marsha Blackburn, of course, Mike Crapo, I'm sorry, that's very childish of me. Mike Crapo, Shelley Moore, and Kevin Kramer. Flag burning, an often controversial form of protest, is considered to be a protected form of freedom of expression under the First Amendment. In the landmark 1989 Supreme Court case Texas v. Johnson, the court ruled 5-4 that Gregory Lee Johnson, a protester who burned a flag, could express politically charged symbolic speech, even if it meant desecrating a national symbol. Of course, Johnson had been convicted under the Texas law for burning an American flag or protesting the Reagan administration's policies at the nomination of former President Reagan for a second term. So what you're doing by banning flag burning is legitimately you're just banning a form of constitutionally protected speech. That's what you're doing. You're trying to usurp the Constitution to go after people's freedom of expression. Is this going to destroy America? No. Is this just hurting America? No. It's just hurting people's feelings. And I understand it. It's something that can piss me off too at times. But you suck it up. People say a lot of things that piss me off. People burn that flag sometimes, and that pisses me off. People call me really mean names on the internet sometimes, and that can piss me off. But you want to know what? I keep going. I keep surviving. I will live. You want to know why? Because I'm a grown-ass adult. You know, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. As long as this isn't a physical threat, like if they're burning the flag and they're going to throw a bomb somewhere, that's different. Former Supreme Court Justice William Brennan argued that it would be odd that the government may ban the expression of certain disagreeable items on the unsupported presumption that their very disagreeableness will provoke violence. Well, if that's the case, that it will provoke violence because it's so disagreeable, then I will list a bunch of things that also need to be banned. Right now, I have a list prepared for stream. Number 1 is, of course, League of Legends. It is a terrible video game that its mere playing of provokes violence. Number 2 would be, of course, anytime that, what's his name? Anytime that Denims goes live on Twitch, that provokes violence due to the poor quality of her streams. Number 3, any controversial political statement. If it's controversial, it might provoke violence. So no controversial statements on, say, the current state of affairs, gay rights, trans issues, anything. You can't say anything controversial because that could provoke violence. Same thing when it comes to issues of race and sexuality or anything. And lastly, no controversial statements about pizza toppings. So you are going to have to forcefully accept pineapple on pizza. If you don't, or make any controversial statements about it, I will consider that a motivation for violence. I could provoke it. So we're just going to have to deal with it. Victor Ozian, thank you so much for the Prime Gaming. I'll finish this and then I'll tell a story since someone redeemed it. Brennan added that Johnson has been convicted for his expression of dissatisfaction with the policies of the country, expression situated at the core of the First Amendment values. See, the reason Johnson burnt the flag in his protest of the Reagan administration was to protest the Reagan administration. It wasn't to burn it, then throw it in the woods and start a fire. That's completely different. Despite the controversial nature of flag burning, the Department of Defense actually recommends burning as the proper method of disposal for flags, albeit in a highly ceremonial manner. In 1937, the American Legion passed a resolution stating the approved method of disposing of unserviceable flags has long been that they may be destroyed by burning. The U.S. flag is considered such a sacred symbol that burning it in an undignified manner constitutes a desecration. That's why ceremonies are held in a specific manner, the DOD wrote. Anyway, anti-free speech Republicans, and let me just say, Republicans, this isn't just one Republican, it is the main guy from Montana, Steve Daines, then Marsha Blackburn, then Mike Crapo, Shelley Moore, and Kelvin Kramer. And I gotta say, this whole thing, they're all full of Mike Crapo. Good story.